Embiid, all 7'1" of them, flopped like a dead fish after faking like Drummond hit him with an elbow. There was no elbow. The Pistons got the last laugh because they won, but Embiid, always entertaining, said of Drummond, quote, "I think I own a lot of real estate in his head," close quote. Tony, today the NBA rescinded that tech on Drummond and issued a flop warning to Embiid. But is that punishment enough for his fraudulence?
I can't speak to his fraudulence or even his flatulence, if that.
I don't want to talk about his flatulence.
You and I differ on this guy. Your love.
I love Embiid, but
I think at the moment he's basically on the all-mouth team. That's what he does.
You don't think he's a hell of a player?
Has he won something that I've missed?
He hasn't had a chance to win yet.
He yaps and he yaps and he yaps. He's got territory in the guy's head. Okay, that's fine.
You know who had territory in his head? Blake Griffin, because he got a great percentage of his 50 on Embiid.
We'll get to that. In this particular case, I'm not as angry about this as you are, about the flopping, because to me, this is strategic. If you clown a player and a ref, if you do that,
right,
I don't think you get tossed for that. I think you need greater vigilance on the part of players and referees. I think Embiid is trying his best to accomplish getting rid of the other guy, and he did.
He did, but you can't have that. There's got to be.
Did he cheat?
Yes.
You felt he cheated.
Is there sportsmanship somewhere in the world? Huh? What did you teach young Michael when he was growing up to flop? No, you didn't. No. So this is untenable. They should be able to go
but your boy
to the
Vlade
table.
made it an art form, and you love him.
Who did?
Divac.
It was funny when Vlade did it, but it was wrong. You got to be able to go to the table. Look, if you can review all these other ridiculous things, don't tell me somebody in New York can't get in somebody's ear on the floor and say, no. No, he didn't touch him with the elbow. As a matter of fact, assess Embiid 2 technical fouls and maybe throw him out of the game. No, if you get caught, you've got to be caught doing this. This is bad for the game.
Today.
It's bad for the product.
I'm going to tell you something that will amaze you.
What?
I landed on this game in the last 3 minutes of overtime, and I watched it.
Was it great?
And I watched Redick hit a three-pointer and get fouled.
Yes.
And then I watched Griffin go to the basket and fake out, I thought, a little bit. Embiid.
How about that move?
Embiid going right, and he got 48-49, and then the and one for 50. And 50's a big deal. It is. 50's a big deal.
It's your first NBA
that.
watch of the year.
Yes, it is.
Did that seem like a first 2-week game to you?
No, but thank God I only watched the last 3 minutes, but it was very exciting.
Because you were watching what? What were you watching?
Baseball, hello.
That took 9.5 hours.
Speaking of the NBA, scoring in the NBA way up so far this season.
Too far up.
Small sample.
Too far up.
But 5 teams are averaging 120 or more points per game. 21 teams are averaging 110 or more points this game. Do you remember the famous 7 seconds or less Suns team that everybody thought played like lightning? Well, the pace of that team, and this is just 15 years ago, would rank dead last in this year's NBA. Now, Wilbon, you hate the offense in the NFL. Do you hate it equally in the NBA?
Not equally, but I don't like it. I mean, I don't like it. I like defense. I like to see some I don't want to see the bad boy Pistons. I don't want to see people cold cocking guys. I don't want to see that. But I want to see defense, and we're not going to see it because it's been legislated out of every sport because of people like you who praise to the heavens all this scoring.
I like it.
And whether it's the NFL's got too many touchdowns and no defense. The NHL doesn't have too much scoring right now, but they're trying to get it there. There's too many points, touchdowns, scoring, baskets, and all of it. No, I don't like it. It's artificial. It's bogus.
You need to go to soccer where they don't score at all. This is the reason ratings are up in the NFL, because of the scoring. This is the reason that the NBA will have greater ratings because of the scoring. You talked about last night's game where there was all of this scoring between Philadelphia and Detroit, and it was an exciting game because of what happens now. It's not that there's no defense.
There's no defense.
The level of offensive genius is higher than ever.
It is.
Even guys 6'8" and 6'9" can pop shots from 25 feet, and there's a selection of shots, and this is because of analytics. They want layups, and they want threes, and the ball moves, and it moves, and it moves, and everybody can shoot it.
It's not because of analytics.
I like
it's because people can shoot.
Analytics.
Let's get that straight.
It's analytics.
It's not analytics.
You got to pick the right shot.
It's not. You got to make the damn shot.
They don't even.
That's not a geek in the basement with a computer.
They're not trying.
That's shooters.
They're not trying
Everyone
from 17
can shoot.
feet.
They are. Some
They're trying from 25.
T.J. Warren is, and he's averaging about 20 for the Suns.
Who?
Yeah, try to watch a game.
Who?
So let me go back to this.
Yes.
Defense has been legislated out. If Michael Jordan had played today, and this is another one of those LeBron Jordan arguments where he had this in the back, Jordan, what would Jordan average now? He'd average 60.
Ratings are up, and the NBA executives see it in the NFL.
And it's still artificial scoring.
No.
It is.
No.
If you think it's too early for the NHL and NBA, and it is, how about college basketball starting last night?
Really?
Duke, as it ought to, roughed up Virginia Union, Charles Oakley School, in a preseason game. But that result is just the beginning of the hype that is going to surround Duke this entire season, even more so than usual, which is difficult. We all know Zion Williamson from YouTube, but there are these two other kids, R.J. Barrett, who was actually listed as the better NBA prospect, #1, and Cam Reddish, who's the third most talented of the three, but still projected to go in the top 5 of the draft. Tony, what's reasonable to expect of these freshmen?
It is not reasonable to expect a national champion. This happens at Kentucky all the time, and it happens at Duke now increasingly, all the time now at Duke. They don't know each other. They're going to play together for 4 months.
They do know each other. They've known each other since they were 13,
they're
playing
going to
in
play,
AAU
They're
tournaments.
going to play, yes, but not as teammates all the way through. Every once in a while, be a teammate and then go to another team in the afternoon, which is how that works. And then what's going to happen is they're going to find their separate ways in the pros. The only reason they're teammates is because of the one-and-done rule. That is the only reason they're teammates. So what you're asking, and you're asking this of coaches, is to form a team that can win 6 games in March and April, you know, out of these
Don't
guys.
you say that's the job? That is
the job, but it's very, very hard. Because it's very hard. Would you rather have, I'll ask you this, would you rather have this Duke team right now for this 1 year, or would you rather have last year's Villanova team where people were together 2 and 3 years?
I'd rather have last year's Villanova team, but I'd also rather have Richard Dent and some defensive players and Lawrence Taylor, and you don't want to see them because you just want to slurp these quarterbacks.
It's ridiculous ad hominem
Let me get to
argument.
one thing.
Let's go to Villanova and Duke.
Zion Williamson.
Can play.
All I hear in my house from Matthew watching YouTube is, Dad, look at these Zion Williamson dunks. Now, I want to see him. I want to see if he can really play. Mike Krzyzewski was praising his entire basketball repertoire this morning on SportsCenter. I want to see the kid.
If you were any kind of father, you'd get rid of YouTube in your house. Let's take a break.
You don't even know what it is.
Coming up, Derek Carr. Your boy. No, Kurt Warner is in the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Arena Football Hall of Fame, but he still hasn't made the cut in the Hewlett High School Hall of Fame like I have.
He's not a Long Island kid.
And despite that, we're pleased to welcome in NFL Network analyst Kurt Warner. Let us start with this. You became a star with the Rams, admittedly in St. Louis, not in Los Angeles. But when you see these Rams, you see what?
Man, I see an explosive team. I see a balanced team. I see a team with playmakers all over the place, which reminds me a lot of our team in St. Louis. We did it a little differently than they do, but theirs is still as effective. And you know what a lot of people don't talk about is their offensive line is incredible. And I think that is one of the stars of that team, even though we look at Goff and Gurley and Aaron Donald, and rightfully so. That offensive line is playing great football, allows them to run the football first and then get those huge play-action plays down the field second. And, you know, and I see a team that plays a little bit differently. A lot of teams play more of the small ball now. They still play up top and stretch the field, and it's fun to watch.
Let's look at the Raiders for a second. The Athletic reported that some players and front office people were questioning Derek Carr because he appeared to cry. I am not about to question any football player's courage for being out there, but would that be the #1 sin at all, Kurt? I mean, I'm sure you've heard about this. What'd you think?
Oh, I did. I think it's ridiculous. I mean, it's funny how it's okay for guys to cry when you lose. In the locker room, you see guys crying all the time. But when you're in pain and you get hurt, it's not okay to cry. I don't understand it. I can't believe there's a locker room that's pointing their fingers at something like that. The only thing that, to me, that comes from reports like that is if there's already a rift or there's already things that you're looking at and you're questioning about someone, maybe this just adds fuel to the fire. But if it's solely because of something like that, I think it's ridiculous. And I don't think any real players that have played this game and understand this game are going to look at that and say, well, that's a negative. I'm going to look at the guy as a player, what he does every day coming to work, and that to me is how I'm going to measure a guy, not what happens when you get hurt or when you lose a football game.
Let me personalize this a little bit. You were famously overlooked by the NFL. but you became a Hall of Fame quarterback. How would you change? Mike and I talk about this a lot when we look at players. Everybody touts a certain guy, and then the guy at the end of the round, that nobody knew of, that guy becomes the great one. So not everybody is an expert. How would you change, if you could, the evaluation process for quarterbacks?
Yeah, I don't think there is a way to change it. I think the most difficult part is, you can see how far a guy can throw it. You can measure how quick he can run, or you can see even some of the things he does in college, but you never really know how anything is going to translate till you get someone between the lines and you put them in different situations and you say, how are they going to handle it? I look at a guy like Patrick Mahomes, and you could see the talent, and you could see, where he might have been off a little bit technique-wise, but when I watch him play, I see a football player. I see a guy that just sometimes things break down, and he just is like he's playing in his front yard, and he's running around, and he's just making plays because that's what you do. And those are things that you're never going to be able to test. You're never going to be able to see until you get them in that situation. And it's why I think so many guys are missed, because how do you evaluate that? How can you know what a guy's going to be and what his ceiling is until he hits that ceiling? So I don't know if there's a good way to do that, but I think you should always look at tape and look at game experience more than you look at anything else when we're talking about quarterbacks.
Do you ever feel like going up to executives and saying, I told you so, I told you so?
No, never. Because I think you always have to rationalize everything. And so for me, when people missed on me or didn't know I was talented, or even, whether I could play at that level, I have to look back and go, well, I sat on the bench for 4 years at a smaller school. That first and foremost says, well, why did he sit on the bench for 4 years? I don't know if when I finally got to the NFL, I was the same player that I was coming out of college. I think I was a much better player because I had played more snaps, even though it was arena football in Europe and all that stuff. I was a different player and a better player when I finally got my opportunity. So I just rationalize it sometimes, and I have to look at myself and go, well, were you the player that everybody should have seen at that time, or did you become that guy? And I'm just fortunate that Dick Vermeil and the St. Louis Rams gave me that opportunity when they did, and I was prepared for it at that time, because before that, I'm not sure I would have been ready to do the things I was able to do when I got to St. Louis.
Your dear friend Larry Fitzgerald the other day sacked you on the sideline, which made me think of this. I wonder if you think of what kind of numbers and career you would have had, even beyond yours, if you'd been protected then, Kurt, like quarterbacks are protected now.
Yeah, I think we all look at the nature of the NFL now. It's crazy when you look at the stats, and there's like 10 guys that are averaging 325, 350 yards a game. They're getting touchdown passes on, these little flips on the jet sweeps now, and, guys are putting up 4, 5, 6 touchdowns every week. Yeah, I think sometimes you look and go, man, it would have been fun to see what the Greatest Show on Turf could have done in this NFL. But then there's the other side of it. I appreciate that we were able to do something at a time when the game was different, when defense was able to be played a different way. And I appreciate that part of it. I'm an offensive guy. I love seeing offense, but I look at this NFL sometimes, and I think it's the competitive advantage is way shifted to the offense. And I sometimes look and scratch my head like, how are these guys even supposed to play defense? And although it would have been great for stats and all of that, I'm not sure it would have been as fun from a competitive standpoint as what I played with a couple decades ago.
Thank you so very much.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
You bet, guys.
You can watch Kurt call the Eagles-Jags from London this Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, exclusively on the NFL Network. Let's take one last break, but still to come, Patrick Peterson makes a statement about his future with your Arizona Cardinals, and his too.
Yeah, that's right.
He played for the Cardinals.
Well, LeBron and the Lakers fall to 0-4 tonight in Arizona.
So that's going to make it tough for me on my 50 prediction, isn't it, if they go to 0-4?
It's tough for you right now.
I know.
Tonight, and a fresh topic from Tony and Mike. SportsCenter, 6 Eastern, after PTI.
Pardon the Interruption is brought to you by PlayStation Store. You won't believe what's in store.
Happy time, people. Happy 22nd birthdays, Brown and Rafael Devers. The two young Boston stars were born on the exact same date. Jaylen Brown, a starter on the Celtics, came to Boston by way of Georgia, where he was born, and Cal Berkeley, where he played. Devers, the third baseman on the Red Sox, came to Boston by way of the Dominican Republic, where he was born and raised. You remember that last year, Brown averaged 18 points in the playoffs, second only to Jason Tatum. And Devers now has at least one RBI in each of his 8 playoff starts.
How dare you forget happy birthday to Jalen Ramsey,
Your boy.
who is sure to be torched in London this weekend by Alshon Jeffrey. How about that? You don't blame a quarterback for another team.
A not-so-happy anniversary, Roger Clemens. On this day 18 years ago, you were fined $50,000 for throwing the jagged barrel of Mike Piazza's broken bat in his path in the World Series. Clemens was shown explaining to Piazza, quote, "I thought it was the ball. Seriously? Oh, sure, this happens to me all the time. Almost every day I take a bite out of a big piece of wood and think it's a sandwich. Come on."
Gave me great pleasure. Even before the unplugged generation came along, this was the lowest rated World Series ever. All I-95, take a hike.
Happy trails to the Oilers defense in overtime in a 5-5 game. Sidney Crosby shows why he is the best player in hockey.
That's one of the great
by
goals
literally
ever.
skating rings around two defenders and then lifting the puck over the shoulder of the Oilers goalie. If you want to see another great goal, Brad Marchand of the Bruins stops licking people long enough to make this pass to set up a goal by David Pastrnak.
That's a great stick handle and pass. By the way, don't you love the Oilers uniforms? Aren't those maybe the coolest uniforms?
Big finish, quick. Broncos released backup quarterback Chad Kelly. You're not surprised?
No, he's been released by everybody, every place he's ever been. The Giants traded defensive tackle Damon Harrison to the Lions for a 5th rounder. What is that? What do you care about?
Do you want me to tell you with the Eli Apple trade, they're tanking? Maybe they're tanking. They're no good. Patrick Peterson says this season has been incredibly frustrating, but that he intends to be a Cardinal for years to come. Do you believe him?
No, he has no control over that. It's football. He's not going to decide where he plays his whole career. Mavericks and Hawks tonight. More interest in Doncic or your boy Trae Young?
Yeah, I don't hate Trae Young like you do.
I don't hate him.
But I saw Trae Young 40 times last year. This is the first time I can see Doncic.
Watch
Doncic by a little. Last one, Lakers at Suns tonight. Oh, no. Is LeBron going to go to 0-4?
No, they're going to go to Phoenix even without Rondo, primarily Rondo.